Chaz Skelly then? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, looked great. The knee was beautiful.
He's a monster, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just like an awkward fucking wrestling monster. He like gets his hands on you and starts dragging you around and starts cracking you in awkward positions. And Striegel just doesn't look comfortable in there to me.
Nah.
Both times he's looked uncomfortable.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like Chaz, he's I don't know what it is about his, like you were saying last week about the wrestler kind of shape.
Yeah.
I don't know how that must benefit. Is it just like the width of them and just being able to grab on? And
I think that might be it.
yeah,
because that's what we were talking about earlier with what's it called, Jonathan Pierce. Like I think if I remember right, it was Striegel that initiated the grappling in the first round, and then once Skelly was in contact with him, it was like this second instinct kicked in, and he was in wrestling mode. And Striegel, I don't know, he's got this kind of. He's got a style that looks confident when he's striking, but he looks uncomfortable as soon as he's under attack. He has this kind of weird thing that he does with his head where he kind of like drifts it to one side. You're like, oh, he's going to do something fancy. There's going to be a ninja move here, and then he just doesn't do anything. Yeah, a bit disappointing. I'm still expecting a bit more from Mark Striegel. I think he would look back on these two fights and I mean, first of all, they're tough opponents. I mean, Sain and Chaz Skelly are not easy fights to have. But then coming in with a record of 18-2, like, you know, high hopes. This is why we don't fight people with terrible records on the way through our career, because you end up with a really good record with no wins on it. I mean, like when he was 9-0, he was still fighting guys that were 1-1.
Yeah, I suppose you'd want that challenge or something at least close to that challenge before stepping into the UFC.
Yeah,
just so you can prepare for that level of fighter, I guess.
I don't think you're benefiting at all from taking easy fights on your way up. Like, okay, I mean, have a couple of easier fights. You know, when you first start your career, you know, fight someone that's 0-2 or, you know, 1-1 or something like that. I have no issue with that. It's when people get to like that other guy that just got knocked out again. I can't think what his name is. I'm just not a fan of him, just based on his record. Like I think he was 10-0 when he joined the UFC. Is he a Canadian kid with like American Psycho haircut? Can't think what his fucking name is. You know what
Mickey,
I mean? No. What was his? No, anyway. But it's like you look at his record, or like sometimes I'll look down their record and I'll add up the people that they've fought's record, and you know their overall is, you know, 8 wins and 64 losses, and you're like, he's fought nobody. Of course he's not going to be prepared. That's what that guy was. He had a couple of fights on his record where the opponent had got 2 wins and 30 odd losses, and you just set yourself up for failure then, because eventually you're going to run into someone who's a monster.
Yeah.
Like, he has got no business fighting someone who's had no fights when his record was 16-2. It makes no sense to me.
Do you think that's maybe because the promotion he was at before, he was like the guy, I guess, and then it's just, okay, we'll just feed him these fighters just to keep him.
That's exactly
keep him
it.
There.
Yeah. It's usually a regional thing as well. Like sometimes you'll find someone that's, you know, they're like a big star in Texas, and King of the Cage will put them on every show that they're there, and they'll probably never get to the top of the sport, but they'll keep fighting guys that are 1-7, and they'll keep choking them out with the same submission. Like, there are some crazy records out there, but like you look at someone like Travis Fulton or Jeremy Horn. Like, let me pull up Travis Fulton's record, because a lot of people listening won't even have heard of Travis Fulton. He was a heavyweight.
Yeah, I've not heard of him.
Most people won't have done. Okay. Oh, there's prison photos of him now. That's not a good sign. Jesus. Okay.
Mugshot.
Yeah. Well, he's 44 now. His professional boxing record, 75 fights, 25 wins, 48 losses.
Jeez.
But what's even more impressive about and this is pro boxing. We've not even gotten to MMA yet. That's going to blow your fucking mind. Pro boxing record, of his 25 wins, he knocked out 23 of them.
Okay.
But of the 48 people that beat him, 33 knocked him out.
Jesus.
That's not healthy.
No.
So let's move on to his MMA record. You won't have heard a record like this before, Jamie, let me assure you. 328 fights.
Oh my God.
263 wins, 54 losses, and 10 draws.
Jesus Christ.
That's mad, isn't it?
That's mad. I'm surprised he's not like a dust in in a jar.
Just a lump of fucking muscles and blood. Honestly, so, let's just go again. 263,
That's
54, and 10 is his record. And of the 263 people he's fought, he's knocked out 193 of them. He's only been knocked out 13 times in MMA, but it's fucking impressive.
Was he in the UFC?
I think he did fight in the UFC very briefly. He was in IFL. He was in. Who else did he fight for? I'll have to look down his record. It's such a massive record.
That's insane.
Here we go. So while posting a winning record between 2001 and 2005, he had losses to upcoming fighters of top UFC level fighters. So he's fought Babalu, Rico Rodriguez, Evan Tanner, Dan Severn, Rich Franklin, Forrest Griffin, Ian Freeman, Jeremy Horn. I mean, Ben Rothwell. He's fought all of these guys. Fought Dan Severn. Ridiculous record.
How many years does that
Let's have a look.
span across? Because if it's like 10
96.
96.
I turned pro in 2004, so he'd been fighting for 8 years by the time I had my first pro fight.
And when did he retire?
He retired. Let's hope he has retired. Jesus, what a record. Hang on a minute. Nearly there. 2019. Went out on two wins.
Yeah, he retired off 2 wins.
2 wins,
Okay.
yeah. With a record of 263 and 54. It's crazy.
Maybe
but
that's...
But the thing is, like, this kind of goes back to the point I was making. Of his 263 wins, he only went to decision 8 times.
Man.
Which is ridiculous if you think about it. Like, 8 times. He went to decision 22 times. He won 8 of them. But, like, you've got to think some of the guys that he was fighting further down his career, I know for sure, because I've looked at his record before, there are times when he fought the same guy multiple weekends in a row. And that guy's got a record of, like, 0 and fucking 24 or whatever. It's such a odd thing. But, Tony Day. He knocked him out on the 5th of January, 2002, in 1:24. And then 10 days later, he knocked him out again in 34 seconds. Same guy, same month.
Jeez.
It's madness.
That's
honestly.
like a reoccurring dream that you've got, just getting knocked out.
Yeah. Fucking ground and pound day.
Maybe that's why they put him in prison, just to make him stop fighting.
Mate, he's probably got a prison record as well. Imagine what his record is in prison. He's probably rear naked choking boys left, right, and centre. Honestly, it's madness. Like, you think that these people existed, and they...
Yeah. You can imagine him carving him into a wall, like notches.
Oh, he committed suicide.
Oh.
And by the sounds of it, it was probably a good thing that he did as well.
Jeez.
So fuck that guy.
That's insane.
But what a record. I mean, like, that's serious. That's some serious brain trauma, that is. Like, it's crazy that these people do exist, though. Like, there used to be a tab on Sherdog that was like best and worst records. And there were some guys out there, and what they would do is, like, the worst records were the guys that had not won any fights. So it would be 0 and 36 or 0 and 42 or whatever. Like,
damn, that's almost exploiting people a little bit, though, isn't it?
It
like,
is.
Yeah,
it is. And then you got to think there's a guy out there whose record is like 3 wins and 48 losses. But he beat 3 people. Who the fuck are those guys? And how were they feeling at the end of that fight? Because they were like, this is definitely going to be a win. Look at this guy. He's never won a fight. Anyway, we digressed. Yeah. The point is, there's a value in getting some real good fight experience as you're coming up. I think what was I? I had 25 fights when I signed with the UFC. 19 and 6 MMA.
Yeah.
I'd lost 6 fights, you know what I mean? Like, I'd had some lessons. There wasn't much of an amateur career back then, though. It was all no headshots.
Yeah, I think I'd want to at least experience... Well, I wouldn't want to experience a loss, but having that is, like you said, valuable experience. Yeah. So if it does happen at that high level, it's not as
Don't wound you quite as much. Yeah, for sure. And there are some lessons that you can learn as an amateur, and you're like, oh, good thing I learned that lesson now before I turn pro. But I think sometimes people, especially in the modern day of MMA, like back in the day, we didn't care. Like the guy, I lost my first fight to Lee Doskey, who I think was 7-2 or something at the time. And then my next fight was against Paul Jenkins, who was like 24-13-3 was his record. When I fought him at 0-1. And we just didn't care. Like, it didn't really matter. I wasn't bothered for sure. And Paul Jenkins certainly didn't care. I think his record was like 50-50 in the end, like 36-36. But he was a guy that would take fights on every week, and he was always a tough fight. He was never there to show up and get paid. He always showed up to fight. He just liked fighting every weekend. But then there are guys that just show up to just take a beating and get paid.
Yeah.
And that is starting to happen a bit more in modern MMA. And then there are fighters that are trying to now protect their records. Like, what it's like at the gym. Every other fucking week, someone's opponent's pulled out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, they just not showed up at the gym. Or, yeah, no, they were training really hard for like 5 days and they said they wanted to fight and now we've not seen them for a week. Like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Like, do it or don't. It's such a frustrating thing because it's one-on-one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's where these short notice guys show up.